What is up, guys? Rekakis here, and today we're going to be discussing the newly released Battlefield 1 and whether or not it's any good, whether or not it deserves a buy. Now, some of you may be thinking, what the heck is this Destiny YouTuber doing covering Battlefield? What could this guy possibly know about the Battlefield franchise? Well, that is a legitimate point. I think a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon that they don't necessarily understand, but actually before I covered Destiny, I was a dedicated Battlefield channel. I uploaded pretty much only Battlefield 4. I've been playing Battlefield games since Battlefield 2, which kind of sounds weird because we're covering Battlefield 1. They really kind of messed up the order there, but in any event, I do know what I'm talking about in terms of the Battlefield franchise. And hopping into Battlefield 1 felt so at home. It felt so classically like a Battlefield game, and I'm having an absolute blast with this game that may kind of give a little bit of it away, but let's discuss the offerings of Battlefield 1. Firstly, let's talk about the single player. Now, yes, there actually is a single player to Battlefield 1. I know most people are interested in the multiplayer, but a lot of people are going to want to have a single player to complement that, have something to do when the servers inevitably get DDoS in a few days, so we're going to talk about the single player offering. Now, the single player is a little bit interesting, actually. It splits the single player up. There isn't necessarily a campaign in the traditional sense, whereas you start from the beginning, you go through a bunch of levels, and then there's the end. There's actually all these different war stories split up across the world, and each one is very unique, or at least somewhat unique from the other one. Firstly, just in the theater of war that they're in. You're fighting in the Middle East for one, you're fighting in Europe for another, so the atmosphere, the structures, just the environments are going to be a lot different in those two theaters, but also just in what you do. In fact, there's one of the war stories involves a pilot, where you are in the plane for all of those levels. You never touch the ground. You're just in that plane. And that's really cool. And that gives you some uniqueness to the gameplay. You're not just drudging around the trenches as a soldier for the whole campaign. Now, I haven't beaten the entire single-player campaign, but from what I've heard and from what I've experienced, it seems pretty promising and actually pretty good. Most people say that this beats out by a long shot the Battlefield 4 single-player campaign. So the Battlefield 1 campaign, again from what I've experienced and from what other people are saying, seems to be like quite the decent offering. Like, for people who are interested in single-player, it's no joke, it's legitimately quite fun. That being said, Battlefield isn't necessarily like a single-player game. If you are mostly concerned about single player, if you are not at all concerned about multiplayer, like if you hate multiplayer and you are, telling yourself, I'm never going to touch the Battlefield multiplayer, I'm just, maybe looking at the single player, I would say don't buy. Just because there's much better single player games out there that you can really immerse yourself in. I mean, The Witcher 3, for example, I know that's kind of an old example, but if you're really just interested in single player, that's not what Battlefield specializes in. If you're kind of interested in single player, Battlefield 1 actually has a decent single player, but you have to also be interested in the multiplayer aspect, which is what we're going to talk about now. Now, multiplayer is really what Battlefield is known for. Those massive maps with 64 players, vehicles, just all-out warfare. But this time, as with other times as well, I suppose, but Battlefield 1's multiplayer really needs to stand up because it's against some pretty heavy competition in the first-person shooter market. Titanfall 2 is just, a week away from release, and that game is coming out with, I believe, a pretty solid multiplayer. I definitely enjoyed my time with the Titanfall 2 multiplayer. Not to mention Infinite Warfare and Modern Warfare Remastered are also coming out. Whether or not you're interested in all or some of these games, it is pretty much undeniable that Battlefield 1 is up against some heavy hitters when it comes to first-person shooter multiplayers. So what does Battlefield 1's multiplayer bring to the table? Well, I have been absolutely crushing it in Battlefield 1 multiplayer. I pretty much get 30 to 40 kills and single-digit deaths every game. Like, I'm absolutely destroying kids. Now, you may be saying, okay, what was the point of saying that, Kakis? You're just bragging. Well, I mean, I am pretty good at Battlefield, just so you guys know. But mainly the reason to say that was that it's a classic Battlefield game. The reason I can hop in and pretty much do excellent in Battlefield 1 and know exactly what I'm doing is because I've spent so much time with other Battlefield games, and Battlefield 1 is very, very loyal, I suppose the word would be, to the Battlefield formula. It feels so much like a Battlefield game. So that is very important. If you have played other Battlefield games, Battlefield 3, even like the Battlefield Bad Companies, Battlefield 4, and you were comfortable and you enjoyed those games in the multiplayer, then that is a definite huge check mark for Battlefield 1, because you most likely will feel right at home. It's very classically a Battlefield game. Now, if you didn't enjoy that Battlefield formula, if you went to Battlefield 4 and you're like, this is too chaotic, I can't do anything, I hate this multiplayer, things haven't really changed in terms of that overall formula in Battlefield 1. A lot of things have changed. I'm not trying to say that, it's a copy-paste of the other Battlefield games, but it just feels so much. I know I keep saying this, but it just feels so much like that classic Battlefield experience that's a huge factor in deciding whether or not you feel that this game deserves your money. If you have experienced those Battlefield games in the past and whether or not you enjoyed them, that is pretty much going to be identical to whether or not you enjoy this Battlefield game. However, let's delve a little deeper, and there are some people out there who have never experienced a Battlefield game. So what is the Battlefield 1 multiplayer all about? Well, it is all-out war. 64 players, depending on the game type, but most commonly you're going to be playing Conquest and I suppose Operations, and you're going to have 64 players to a map. All of those players are running around, shooting stuff, getting in tanks and planes, just throwing grenades, doing nothing, all of the classic Battlefield tropes. And it's such an immersive and fun experience. I was really surprised by how, actual warlike it feels when you're in Battlefield 1. You're hiding at the edge of a cliff, there's a castle above you that you're trying to take, and you're just crouched down or prone down, hiding for your life because there's a tank going over top of you and you're just praying that it doesn't see you. And then the weather effects. I want to just go over the weather effects coming in. I thought they would be kind of a gimmick, to be honest. I thought they would be, it's fog for a little bit, whatever. But they are no joke. Fog will roll into the map. On certain maps near the coast, it will start raining, like torrential downpour, and it is legitimately so crazy to have that fog, and your visibility is shot. If there's a fog, if there's a sandstorm, if there's a heavy rain, you cannot see that far ahead of you. You are engaging enemies pretty much in hipfire distance constantly, and it is such an intense experience. You're fighting house to house because you can't see the people, in the sniper tower, and they can't see you. So it's just a really interesting experience when those weather effects will roll in. They are more than just a gimmick, in my opinion. Also, the classes have been really, I wouldn't necessarily say perfected, because I'm sure they're gonna, improve them further in the next iteration of Battlefield. But the four classic classes of Battlefield are back. You have the medic, this time with, single shot semi-automatic rifles. The medic can go around, heal people, of course, and revive people. You have the assault kit. They have SMGs and shotguns, and they're kind of the anti-vehicle kit. They have anti-vehicle grenades, anti-tank rocket guns, dynamite, stuff like that. You have the support class, lugging around heavy machine guns with fully automatic rate of fire, and they can support the team by supplying ammunition. And lastly, you have the scout class. They can spot people easily. They have flare guns to reveal who's kind of around a certain location, and they have the bolt action sniper rifles. I have personally taken a liking to the support class. It's kind of my go-to class right now, having a lot of fun with it. But each class in Battlefield is a unique gameplay experience when you pick it. Assault feels so much different than support, than medic, than recon. They all feel different when you play them, and they all have very different roles on the battlefield. And actually, the way that you can support your team makes it so that Battlefield, although Battlefield can be daunting to new players, and Battlefield 1 does a great job, as other Battlefield games did kind of as well, of still helping new players be assets to their team even if they aren't doing well. If you look at a Battlefield scoreboard, you'll often see people who are, 41 and 6 below people who are 20 and 15. And you're like, how did this person do well? He was playing the objective and he was supporting his team. If you're a terrible player, you can just kind of run behind your team, throw ammo packs at them, throw, health kits at them, revive people. You are going to get so many points. You are going to level up. You're going to kind of learn the battlefield, hopefully get better at shooting people, all that stuff. But again, you can be a useful asset to your team. You can still be a bonus to have in your squad. You can support your team, level up, get a hell of a lot of experience and points towards, again, leveling up just by helping your teammates, healing them, providing ammunition, all of that stuff. And that is a great aspect of Battlefield. And that's something Battlefield 1 definitely sticks true to. So, should you buy Battlefield 1? Well, in my personal experience, it's definitely edging towards a yes. I have been loving the Battlefield multiplayer. As we went over, it sticks true to the classic Battlefield formula, which I love, but it puts that in a World War I setting, which is an extremely interesting setting that really hasn't been explored by any AAA games so far. And on top of that, it's bringing destruction, being able to completely blow open a house that people were using as cover and changing the map entirely. That's a fantastic feature that really no other game replicates in a multiplayer experience. It also has gorgeous visuals, and the weather system is more than just a gimmick. So the multiplayer I am loving. I think it's a fantastic experience, and I would highly recommend it if you are new or if you have already played in the past and have enjoyed the Battlefield experience. If you've hated the Battlefield experience, if you've hated other Battlefield games, give Battlefield 1 a pass. It sticks true enough to the formula that if you hated previous Battlefield games, you're going to hate this as well. To the single player aspect, it's pretty damn good as well, providing a solid single player on top of an almost perfect, in my opinion, multiplayer experience is really making me say, you know what? If you haven't experienced a Battlefield game, or if you have in the past and you somewhat enjoyed it, I would highly recommend you buy Battlefield 1. I'm having a blast with it. I think it's fantastic. I would definitely hold off on the Seasons Pass, the Premium Edition. That's because, frankly, we need to know more about it. Other Battlefield games like Battlefield 4 have actually been well worth the $60 for Battlefield Premium, and that's because on top of coming with new maps, for example, Battlefield 4 Premium came with tons and tons, I think 20 plus new weapons. And that's the important part about the Battlefield DLCs. If they're coming with a ton of new weapons, that's fantastic. You can be the one with Battlefield Premium and still play with your friends who don't have the DLCs and be using those new weapons, have completely different experiences by using them. That's like the main awesomeness of the Battlefield DLCs. I would wait a second till we know more about what exactly is in Battlefield 1 Premium before you guys buy it. I just bought the base game for myself. I'm kind of waiting for that information as well. But the Battlefield base game, again, I would highly recommend. I think it's a buy. Now, that's it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Battlefield 1 content, let me know in the comment section down below. Now, if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter. That's linked in the description down below at RickKakis, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.